Welcome to FX Street. What we're going to be going over here, we're going to look at three of the top trending cryptocurrencies today. Right now, it's Fuse, not Oryx token. I'm sorry, Steppen and GMT, and then we're going to talk about Zilliqa as well and go over their charts and see, where they're going as far as can they go any higher, or are they going to face some resistance. Before we get into that, I would really encourage you to head on over to YouTube, head on over to the channel, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter as well at FXS Crypto, and myself on Twitter at JustAnalysis1. First off, we're going to look at Go Mining, which is GMT. It's had a spectacular run. You look at where it was back near the beginning of the month, around March 6th, near the lows. You can see that we've moved up considerably, as high as, probably excluding that, almost doubling in value since the 6th, and currently up 81.1%. It's found a little bit of a area where it's finding some difficulty moving higher. A lot of that has to do with, well, there's a huge chunk of resistance in there. You have the 618 fib retracement at 32 cents, the 100% fib expansion at 30 cents, and you have a high volume node in the 2022 volume profile. Now, saying that, it's hit that zone. It's been rejected several times, but there hasn't been any follow through by bears to really push it down any further south. In fact, you look at today, and GMT is actually kind of performing pretty well. It has hit overbought conditions. The RSI is in bull market conditions, and so what that means is that the overbought levels are 80 and 90, with oversold at 50 and 40. So it has kind of like pushed up against 80 several times, and when it does that, that's not necessarily a sign of rejection. It's kind of pointing to likelihood that it's going to move higher. As far as how much higher on the daily chart, I would expect it to really not go any higher than near where the 2022 highs are at, in that 36.5 cent range. That's also where the 1618 expansion is. So if it does move higher, that's where I would expect it to go as far as its upside potential. So any daily close that is at around 33 cents or higher puts it above this high volume node, and it becomes a lot easier for GMT to move up. As far as downside risks are concerned, you have a very, very, very strong level of support down below around 24 cents, where the 2022 volume point of control is at. The top of the Ichimoku Cloud, Senko Span B, and the 382 fib retracement. Lots of support at 24 cents. And so that does it for GMT. And that brings us over to Fuse Network. Fuse has also been on a heck of a drive over the last several months. Rather, a dive, not a drive. It's dove down quite a bit over the last 3 months. But it is one of the top trending cryptos right now, as far as things that are being searched for. Just through these trend lines here, not in any particular price level, but just to show that you do kind of have this megaphone pattern that is very, very clearly pointing in a very I don't know what the word is for it, but the slope or the angle is very, very extreme, and beyond 45 degrees almost. But it looks very, very, very strong here, like it could continue this behavior of continuing to push up and seeing these expansive drives. You saw the first low here, push up, pull back, pushed up. Likely to see that continue unless something changes. So this is on the 3-week Ichimoku chart. On the weekly, the RSI remains in bull market conditions. It's between 40 and 50, those oversold levels, and as it's gotten to the bottom of this range here, and I mean, Fuse Network is still so new that we don't have a complete volume profile. I mean, a complete Ichimoku system for it. So it's still so new that we don't have a full cloud, but we do have the Tenkan Sen and the Kijin Sen, and we do have enough data to see the composite index, the RSI, and the %B. Now, the composite index is about to cross above its fast-moving average, and that is often a very strong buy signal, and that would occur at the same time that the RSI slips up out of the oversold level of 50 and turns into neutral conditions. So you have this kind of rounded bottom. there's a lot of reasons why we should anticipate Fuse network moving higher here and having a pretty good drive towards probably that 382 level on the weekly chart, which is where the Tenkan-sen and the 60 cent level, where that's where the weekly Tenkan-sen and the 382 Fib retracement are at. From a daily chart perspective, it's pretty flat trading between the 17th and the 29th. You see today it has pushed up a little bit more. This is the 2022 volume profile. I can see a ton of accumulation down here. It's the second consecutive day that is trading above that volume point of control, which is at roughly 40 cents. And now the current close on the daily, it hasn't closed yet. We've still got it roughly 7 hours before it closes, but it is now above the Kijun-sen and the Tenkan-sen. And if it does close above those two levels, that'll be the first time that that's occurred since January 20th of this year. As far as how high it could go, its upside potential, fairly limited from where it's at. I would say probably towards that 59 to 60 cent level. We looked at that on the weekly chart, but also that's where the bottom of the cloud is at. It's 382 Fib retracement. Above that, you have the 50% Fib, and it becomes a little bit more dicey there because the volume profile does get a little bit thicker. But certainly, we could see some kind of aberrant spike if it gets to 53 or 54, because the volume profile between 53.72 and 60 cents is very, very thin. So price could move through that zone very, very quickly. And just like on the weekly chart, you can see that the RSI is still in bull market conditions. It's been stuck in between the 50 and 40 level now. Ever since February, well, actually, you could go back further. Since the beginning of February, the end of January, and it's been stuck in between those oversold levels of 50 and 40. And so if it does break up above 50, that is likely to generate some substantial buying pressure, and you could see it really rally here pretty strongly towards that 60 cent level. As far as downside risks, they could be substantial. You have the volume point of control here for 2022, but I mean, it just recently made new yearly lows just as recently as the 13th of March. And, given the structure that exists here, it could very easily break. I would be very careful of any daily close that is below 31 cents. 31 cents or lower, that could be a fairly steep drop, bringing it all the way down to, even though it's not drawn on here, the not point of control, but a high volume node in that 13.5 cent range. So that's something to be careful. But we'll keep an eye on it and update it as needed. That pretty much does it here for Fuse. And finally, that brings us to this crazy, crazy mover, Zilica. Zilica looks like, I don't know. It's like Elon Musk on cocaine and a toga tied to one of his rocket ships to Mars. It is just, bam, crazy, crazy, crazy moves. Doing analysis on something like this is kind of moot. So soon. It's not moot, but clearly there's a lot of oomph behind it. As far as altcoins go, to put into context how much and how fast it has risen, if we look at the monthly chart, okay, the monthly chart. So the month of March, if it closes right where it's at, it has swallowed up the entire range of the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, well, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months. Okay, it's back where it was almost a year ago. Okay, the last 9 months it has swallowed up that entire range, and I mean that is impressive. That is impressive, and it's what I find very impressive is how sustained this drive higher it seems to be, especially on the daily chart. It seems, for whatever reason, kind of unfazed with the drive down. Now, it has been beaten down quite a bit. And it has had a lot of kind of weakness, low volume participation. So the drive up here is noticeable, but I'd be very careful, especially today and tomorrow, the last day of March. On the Ichimoku Cloud, Senkou Span B is the hardest area to cross above or below, and it's not cross, but to close. So I'd be very careful of how much higher it goes from here, because it could very easily come back down to the Tenkan Sen and the Kijun Sen and that 618 fib retracement around that 10 cent level. Consequently, that's also where the 2021 volume point of control is at. So if it does close above the cloud, that is going to be a big deal. That will confirm an ideal bullish Ichimoku breakout on the weekly chart. That could really create a, man, how high is this that it has moved this week? I just have to measure this. It's pretty nuts. Man, it's gone up as much as 244%, but it's currently up 214%. That is a strong move. And given how the rest of the crypto market has seen a little bit of a pause and some profit taking or some consolidation occurring, Zilica's spike here is pretty impressive. From an RSI perspective, is it overbought? Yeah, it's overbought. It's at the last overbought level in a bull market at 90, but it continues to keep pressing on. So it's, as far as upside potential, going into it and talking about next week, I definitely see it maybe facing some selling pressure at 25 cents, psychological number. It's near the all-time highs. But yeah, it's a pretty wild drive up. It'll be very bullish if Zilica closes the weekly chart around 13.138 or 0.14. If it closes around there on the weekly chart, that could create some very, very new trends here for Zilica. But otherwise, I'm not touching it. I'm not going to touch it. I wouldn't short it. I wouldn't go long on it. I don't plan on doing any of that with Zilica. We're going to wait for the excitement to die down and see where it goes. Again, downside pressure likely, downside risks are likely limited to that 10.5 to 11 cent range, and upside momentum will likely be capped around 25 cents, but we'll see. Anyways, that does it for me over all of these three kind of trending cryptos. You can see why they are trending and what's giving them a lot of pamp from a technical perspective. We'll update those that need to be updated as needed. Thank you all for watching. Again, don't forget to go to YouTube, join our channel, hit that subscribe button, and likewise follow us on Twitter. Thank you.